Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Rentz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, I'm going to give you the Raiders injury news that you need to know before the Silver and Blacks' big Week 10 Sunday Night Football game up against the New York Jets. So the Raiders just released their injury report, and there's 12 names on this list. 6 on the offensive side of the football, 6 on the defensive side of the football. First, let's look at the D. Giggity. It's Maxx Crosby, a limited participant. From what I understand, though, Max is going to be just A-okay in this one. I know every single time Crosby ends up popping up on an injury report, like most Raider fans, there is a little bit of panic. He's okay. Deablo definitely one to look at, dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury right now. Nate Hobbs still battling with his ankle. He's been limited. Luke Masterson was back-to-back full participation when dealing with a concussion. Marcus Peters, he was limited, which is good because he missed Wednesday's practice with a knee injury. And then Robert Spillane practicing in full. And if you haven't heard the Robert Spillane story, broke his hand against the Detroit Lions, had surgery between the Lions and Giants game, played then through a broken hand surgery essentially against the New York Giants. I mean, Robert Spillane is an absolute dog. Then you go to the offensive side of the football. Austin Hooper, limited. He should be okay. Jakob Johnson did not participate, still dealing with that concussion. I have no idea whether or not he's going to go. My guess will be no. The big name on here is Kolton Miller, and we're going to talk about him in just a second because for the second straight day, did not participate, dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury. Thayer Munford was limited, which is honestly good news because if Miller's unable to go, the Raiders are going to have a really interesting situation on their hands. Greg Van Roten was limited, and then Brian Hoyer, but honestly, nobody cares about Brian Hoyer at this point. Remember, y'all, if you want to stay up to date on everything going on around the Silver and Black, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you got those notifications turned on. If you still don't have a voice from Screaming Fire McDaniels from the Raiders win against the Giants like me, I've been trying to get my voice back all week. But you know what? Sometimes it's just not going to happen. That just means we got to scream Raiders just a little bit louder. But if you're a diehard fan, wound to the tomb type of shit, hit that subscribe button. And if you don't like what you see, guess what? We got a free channel here. Hit that unsubscribe button after a week. You got absolutely nothing to lose. All right, probably the main reason why most of y'all ended up clicking on this video is because we got to talk here a little bit about Kolton Miller. And Miller is a tough SOB. Like, he is one of the toughest players on the Raiders. He is not afraid to play through injuries. He's done it since being drafted in the first round, pick number 15 overall out of UCLA back in the Gruden days, and he's been able to play through some of those injuries. I don't have an update on Miller. I texted Miller, has not yet gotten back to me in terms of how healthy he's going to be, but for people that watch the show a lot of the times, you know I'm a big, where there's smoke, there is fire, and one of the reasons why I'm saying that is because the Raiders, they signed Brandon Parker to the practice squad earlier this week, and Brandon Parker's not any good. The Raiders settled with an injury settlement with him earlier in the year, which I thought meant he was going to be done. Now he's back on the practice squad, and the reason why this makes me a little bit nervous is because Brandon Parker is a swing tackle. He can play left, he can play right tackle. It was what he was supposed to be able to do this season for the Raiders, but the fact that they brought him back makes me a little bit nervous here around Kolton Miller. So as it stands right now, when you look at the Raiders' offensive line depth chart here, you got Kolton Miller, Dylan Parham, Andre James, Greg Van Roten, Jermaine Illuminor. The real only names that I'm looking at on this list here are Justin Herron, who's really been very unreliable. Thayer Munford has been battling an injury, missed last week. And then you got Brandon Parker. So anytime a big-time injury like this pops up, you know, you got to be able to cover it. And yes, he is dealing with a shoulder injury. But the other part of that is being able to take that information and think, okay, well, what exactly happens next? So this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and let me know your thoughts. If Kolton Miller can't play against the Jets, who should start at left tackle and who needs to protect Aiden O'Connell's blind side? My answer is simple, and this one really should not surprise a lot of people out there. If it was up to me, I am starting Jermaine Illuminor at left tackle. I'm not putting Brandon Parker in that situation. I'm not putting Justin Herron in that situation. I'm not putting Thayer Munford in that situation because, God forbid, if anything happens to Aiden O'Connell up against a very talented New York Jets front, it's going to be bad news for this Raiders team the entire season. And the other reason why I'm going to roll here with Jermaine is he's had And he has shown that he can play left tackle, he can play right tackle, he can play left guard, he can play right guard. Earlier this offseason, during the preseason, when the Raiders put out a lot of their starters, or I guess a lot of their backup players, the final preseason week, they put Jermaine Illuminor at left tackle, and dude absolutely balled out. So if Miller, for whatever reason, is unable to go, and I know he's going to try because he's a tough dude, I expect to see Jermaine Illuminor at left tackle, and then I'm going to guess Thayer Munford potentially at right tackle. Coming up next here on the show, I got some injury news around Marcus Peters, because Peters did leave the Week 9 game against the Giants a little bit early, and some Raider fans, which I get it, you're a little bit nervous because Peters has been making up some big-time plays in the past few weeks. So my answer on whether or not Marcus Peters is going to be out there is coming up here in just a second. But if you haven't already, please, man, go get started with our sponsor, Prize Picks. You're going to have so much fun getting started with them, whether you want to put some money down on the Raiders, whether you want to put some money down on the NBA, whether you want to put money down, heck, I don't even care, on tennis. I mean, they literally have everything. Shout out to Chugs. To me, this week, the picks that I'm rolling with, and if you're like, Mitch, I don't agree with you, I'm going to fade you. Well, guess what? Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. You're going to get a $100 deposit match, so essentially they're putting some free money in your account. I'm going to go with less on passing yards with Aiden O'Connell, because I really expect that Antonio Pierce, Bo Hardegree are really going to try to run the rock with Jacobs to take some of that pressure off Aiden. And as much as I love Devontae to me is still one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the NFL. But the problem is right now is their offense is spreading the football around. You have some inexperienced quarterback play. I know Tate can get his, and if I end up missing this one, that's definitely going to stink. But he has been less for 4 or 5 straight weeks now. And guess what? I'm trying to make some money back here. So if you're like me and you're like, I'm going to watch the Raiders anyway, check. I might as well try to make some money while I'm doing it. Check. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That link's going to be available to you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show. All right, let's go here to Marcus Peters now. Again, Peters was limited today on Thursday, was unable to go on Wednesday, and left the game against the New York Giants early. But for those that don't remember, and maybe you didn't watch the show on Monday, I said that Antonio Pierce in his post-game essentially said Peters would have been able to finish that game against the Giants if it would have been a little bit closer. So honestly, man, I fully anticipate to see Marcus Peters out there this upcoming week. He should be healthy, even if he's battling just a little bit of an injury. It is what it is type of ordeal. And if he's unable to go, look for a player maybe like Tyler Hall to step up. Maybe look for a player like Amik Robertson, who's been starting over Ja'Cory and Bennett. Maybe they decide to rotate in David Long Jr. a little bit. But if I expect to see Peters out there, I expect to see Nate Hobbs, I expect to see Amik Robertson. Those are going to be your top 3 corners this upcoming week, which I'm really hoping that the Raiders have a matchup idea here for Garrett Wilson, because besides all those other receivers for the Jets, there's not another other guy out there that scares me besides Garrett Wilson. If I'm the Raiders, I'm bracket covering Wilson. I'm doubling him up. I'm saying you're not beating me. Also, before we get into more injury news, for those that do not know yet, I'm going to be in Las Vegas this weekend, Saturday, November 11th, inside of Resorts World, which is going to be at Red Tail. And I can't wait. I've already talked with a bunch of Raiders fans that are going to be showing up. We're going to have a bunch of drinks. We're going to have some food. We're going to have a hell of a time. I'm going to get there at 7 p.m., and to the first 10 people that show up, you're going to get a free round on me. And as far as I'm concerned, we can stay till 9. We can stay till 10, 11. The more people that show up, the more rocking that this spot is going to be. Please, don't be afraid. Bring the kids. If you got kids with you, there's like a basketball hoop there. There's a bunch of games. I mean, it is a really cool spot. So if you're in Las Vegas this Saturday, I'm going to be at Red Tail Restaurant Bar inside of Resorts World, 7 p.m., 9 p.m. Bring the fam. Bring as many Raider fans as you can. I'm trying to pack that joint to show them how the nation gets down. All right, let's keep it rolling here with some more injury updates around Divine Deablo now. Divine's had a really tough time trying to stay healthy throughout the entirety of his career, and there's no doubt Divine has tons and tons of athletic ability, but it is that unknown factor of how much you're going to get him. He was limited. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you whether or not he's going to play. I would say if you have a quarter next to you, flip it. Ask your wife, fiance, significant other, kid, daughter. I don't care who it is. Heads or tails. And if they get it right, he's playing. If they get it wrong, he's not. Because to me, Divine Deablo is a coin flip. If he is unable to go yet again, there are a few players that I'm really going to be looking at to step up. Obviously, Luke Masterson, I think, has done a pretty damn good job filling in, and I expect to see Masterson out there on the field this week. On top of that, though, Amari Burney, your rookie, who got his first, real legit playing time last week with Antonio Pierce, who was the linebacker coach. And Burney, there's some raw stuff there, but his athletic ability, I'm not kidding you, he might be the most athletic linebacker on this Raiders team. And if he can put it together up here, look out, because with him and Robert Spillane, they're going to have a hell of a linebacker duo. Another name that needs to step up then is Jalen Smith. He was signed to the Raiders the day after the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. That's literally the very first video I made bright and early that morning. Jalen Smith has some ties to Patrick Graham, needs to step up because guess what? The Jets are going to run the rock with Breece Hall, and you need to be able to have somebody like Smith, who has shown in years past that they can wrap somebody up, because if you let a lot of missed tackles with Hall, he's one of the best running backs in the league, and you can't let Hall beat you. You can't let Garrett Wilson beat you. You got to make Zach Wilson try to beat you. More injury news here around again. Jakob Johnson dealing with that concussion. I don't know what to expect from him. He's, again, a hell of a blocker out there. Does a lot of really good stuff for Josh Jacobs. And to me, if he's unable to go, which, again, I don't anticipate that he's able to play, I expect the Raiders to go with a lot of two tight end sets just to help out Aiden O'Connell, especially help out on the left side of Kolton Miller. Whether he's out there or not, he's probably not going to be 100% healthy. So I expect to see them figure out ways to maybe chip a few extra guys so they can't just pin their ears back and get after Aiden. All right, y'all, that's all the news and updates I got for you around the silver and black, around all the injury stuff that you need to know heading into Week 10 on Sunday Night Football. If you don't already know, and you probably don't listen often, you can hit me up on IG, you can hit me up on Twitter at MitchellRens365, and Jeremy Chuggs and I right now are getting ready to go live for Thursday Night Football, Bears, Panthers. It's going to be a hell of a time. We got some fun things up our sleeve, so hopefully you guys tune in and join us tonight.